back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it. Yes! Oh, my God! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break. Winning it 3.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Well, that was definitely not the result we wanted against Columbus. But to be honest, I'm not as upset as some Union fans I saw on social media, and maybe not as upset as this guy who's joining me to review this game today. I would like to welcome back onto the show, probably for like the 6th or 7th time, the creator of his brand new podcast, X Button Gaming, Mr. Ricky Zellefrow. How are you doing today, Ricky?
I'm doing fairly good, as much as you can be. It's an honor to be on here once again. This is, of course, only my second actual episode. All of those, quiz episodes, which I'd rather not remember how the last 2 episodes of that went. But
You'll be back for season 2 sometime in the winter, right, Ricky?
Oh yeah, I will be not prepping once again and hoping to make it all the way to the semifinals before I inevitably lose 2 games by 1 point.
Yeah. Well, let's hope you don't get Ed again, right? So, well, wait, who'd you lose to? Rich? Oh, it's been a while, so I
didn't
forget.
play Rich. I must have played. I must have played the other finalists.
You played. It was Michael you lost to. That's what it was, because you played Ed in the third place game. That's what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. But yeah, like I said, you're the creator of a brand new podcast called X Button Gaming and everything, and I can't wait to hear all about that at the end and everything. But, yeah, let's just go straight into how I'd like to start this episode with the news. So, yeah, let's just go straight into the news. So, first off, according to Doug Robinson of AJC, he's reporting that Pity Martinez has been sold to Saudi Arabia club Nassr, I'm probably saying that wrong, for a fee of $18 million. And now what I find interesting about this, Ricky, is Atlanta's making a profit off of selling Pity Martinez for a guy who wasn't the same player he was for River Plate in Argentina. Almost $16 million they bought him for. And now they're selling him for $18 million and everything for a guy who's not been the player they thought they were getting and everything. It's just like, yeah, I don't blame Atlanta at all for selling him, because I'm going to keep saying it, and I'm sure he probably said the same thing. Like, everybody probably had high expectations for Pity Martinez. They thought he was going to link up well with Joseph Martinez. He did not fit into Frank de Boer's system and everything. We all know Frank de Boer got fired and everything, but they're just so smart, because Atlanta still doesn't have a head coach and everything. And so now this opens up a new DP spot for Atlanta. And now once they get a new manager and everything, now he can make the DP signing of his choice and everything. So just what are your thoughts on this, Ricky?
I mean, I think it's good business if you can find it. You know what I'm just thinking, looking at Atlanta, they're going to have a new head coach. They're going to have him wanting to bring in his own players. They've got the money to spend, and it's honestly like he's had one good game the whole season, and that was their most recent one. So it's kind of funny that he finally has a good game, and then like the next minute they're like, "Bye, Felicia." But beyond that, I feel like Arthur Blank has the money to spend on this team. So if it's not working out, just go ahead, make the move, get on with your life. You're making money off of it. I mean, with MLS rules, they make it's $4 million than what they bought him for. So they'll make a fourth of that. I believe they get $1 million automatically, and whatever tam, thank you, ma'am, whatever they get. Yeah. So we'll see what they do with that. But we know Arthur Blank's got the money, so hopefully he still has the money with everything going on with COVID and stuff. But it's what I would do in that situation. Cut your losses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, okay, like I said, I mean, he's just not been the same player he was at River Plate and everything. I remember the hype around Pity Martinez. All these Atlanta fans showed up at the airport and everything, were chanting his name and everything, taking pictures and everything. And like, they had a right to be excited, because this guy, I believe, was the player of the season down in Argentina. And there was big hype around him. And then he got into MLS and did not fit into Frank de Boer's system. And well, they got rid of Frank, and now they got rid of Pity and everything. And Atlanta's just cutting the losses this season ever since they lost Joseph Martinez to the ACL injury. But, if there's going to be a season that you just take an L on, it's definitely this season, because this is going to be a season for so many teams to forget.
I definitely think this signing kind of reminds me of when David Accam came to Philadelphia, and everybody was like, "Oh, we got that forward that's going to do things for us." And then he wasn't as bad as Pity Martinez has been for the amount of money. We only spent like $1 million in allocation money on him, and then I think last year we ended up getting maybe like half of that back from Nashville. But he did score some goals. It's just, especially with a team like Philadelphia, you're spending $1 million, you think you're going to get something out of it. With a team like Atlanta, you're spending $18 million, you're hoping to get a heck of a lot more out of that at that point.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, let's go on to point number 2. So ESPN is reporting that Inter Miami are close to signing Juventus striker Gonzalo Higuain. Higuain's definitely not Edison Cavani, and he's definitely not Suarez, the two strikers I believe that, Inter Miami probably would have liked instead of Higuain. And I remember, I don't know, for the last couple of years, there's been all these rumors, Higuain should come to the MLS to play with his brother Federico and everything. Now Federico is at DC United, and now Gonzalo looks like he's going to Juventus. I mean, he hasn't been the same player he's been really ever since his first season at Juventus and everything. I mean, he's put on a lot of weight and everything. It seems like he doesn't want to do the work off the ball and everything. And Inter Miami have been screaming for a striker and everything. So, like I said, this is no Suarez, this is no Cavani, but, it's a name that people know and everything. But I still don't think this is the signing that's going to get their fans excited, in my opinion.
I think with this conversation, you're going to have another, it's good business if you can find it. And for Gonzalo Higuain coming to Miami, it's good business for him. It might not be good business for Miami. There's no fans coming to these games, really. And even if there are, it's 2,000 fans. They're not going to make money off of this signing in the grand scheme of things. So at this point, why would we continue to have this idea of, it's a retirement league, we're getting some of these older players, and we've tried so hard to get away from that, you look at a player like Higuain, he was not that great at Chelsea. Remember when he signed for 6 months on that loan, and just because he fits the idea of Sarri ball, and then he just hasn't been that great the last few seasons. And would he score goals? Yes, but at the price of what? We're talking about a lot of money here, no matter what. They recently signed Matuidi, who's not a player that I would have on a, DP contract, because we talked about on our last episode, we talked about you need yourself a glue guy.
Yeah.
Alejandro Bedoya is a glue guy. I don't think Matuidi's the glue guy you're looking for. He's too high end, even though that's kind of the position he's playing. That's kind of the role he plays in the team. He's too high end to be the glue guy. And at that point, you're spending way too much money on your glue guy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great throwback there, Ricky. But yeah, I mean, somehow Inter Miami got Matuidi on a TAM deal, which everybody thought it was going to be a DP signing and everything. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe, David Beckham, when he was at LA Galaxy and everything, the Galaxy had 4 players that would have been DP players on their squad, but somehow they found a way to turn it into TAM and everything. So maybe they'll find a way to make Higuain into a TAM signing and everything. But, I think it's interesting that Inter Miami have went to Juventus for 2 players and everything. Will they complete the hat trick and bring Ronaldo to Inter Miami?
I think with Ronaldo, there's a lot of issues that have nothing to do with the game of football that will lead to him probably never coming to MLS. And I feel like that's a conversation we probably shouldn't be having on this podcast. We should not, no. But I do feel like if we're going to get somebody in MLS, it's going to be Messi, and it's going to be in 2 years if that contract with Manchester City / NYCFC happens. Honestly, I feel like Messi could be the sort of player where he ends up here regardless of what happens there. But I do not feel like the hat trick of Juventus players is going to be Ronaldo. And honestly, as an American fan, of course, I'm going to have to start watching that team because of Weston McKennie. But I could not tell you if there were any other options that I would see a team like Miami going for.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I just had to throw Ronaldo's name out there because it seems like, all these MLS fans keep saying, Ronaldo's going to come to Inter Miami or one of the LA teams and everything. So I'm like, look, that's 2 signings that Inter Miami are about to make from Juventus, why not throw in Ronaldo? But yeah, you're right. Let's not have that conversation and everything. And let's go in and talk about some Union news from around MLS. So we saw last week Kacper Przyblko scored 3 goals, 1 assist against New York Red Bulls and DC United. And this week it was announced that he won MLS Player of the Week. So I think it was well-deserved and everything. And the thing I love about Kacper, he said, whenever one of us win these accolades and everything, it's not because of that individual. It's because of a team and everything. And yeah, I'm so happy that Kacper, we saw down in Miami, Orlando, that he wasn't that hot down there. I think he scored, 1 goal down there and everything. And it seemed like he was struggling with fitness and everything. And maybe it was the heat and everything, like people keep talking about. He had COVID symptoms and everything. Maybe that was affecting him a little bit. Comes back north and everything and scored 3 goals against 2 opponents and won MLS Player of the Week.
I think with the Kacper, the quotes on it's sort of a team thing, especially with a team like the Union that plays so defensively, plays on the counterattack so much, that it is really a team thing. And one of the things Jim Curtin said a few years ago, he made that statement on, for most teams, they can have one player play a really good game and they can win the game. For the Union, every single player has to be on to at least win the game. I don't think that's as much of a thing as it used to be. We definitely have attacking talent that we did not used to have. We definitely have players that are above the replacement level at most positions. And it feels like if we look at the roster, starting 11 plus your 3 normal subs, let's look at that roster and be like, what teams are better than the Union? It used to be probably half of the league is better than the Union. Now it's probably like LAFC, definitely, Atlanta, possibly. And you're starting to get into teams where you're like, well, they're about even. A lot of people don't think that, let's look at the Union roster and be like, oh, look at all these players. They're not like the sexiest international stars. They're not the players that other leagues are like, oh my God, I want that player. And it's surprising that MLS got. But they are in the league that we are in at a level that is near the top. And I think that's definitely a conversation a lot of people could have.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, I said it last episode, it's just so crazy. We saw Kacper score 15 goals last season, and you expect a DP-type striker to score that many goals, and we're not even paying Kacper DP type of money, and he signed a new contract, we know, in February and everything, and didn't even complain, pay me DP money because I scored 15 goals last season. So, props to Kacper for just always being a team-first guy and everything. And the last bit of news we'll end with, and like you alluded to, you're a United States fan, and if people remember that from the last episode, we talked a little bit about the national team. Well, this does have to do with the national team a little bit, because that is United States men's national team center back, or Philadelphia Union center back Mark McKenzie, has been linked to now from Belgium news sources to Anderlecht over in Belgium. And the article also mentions that Celtic and Union Berlin have been monitoring McKenzie, and there's been quotes in there that said the Union are asking for a price of $2.4 million plus a sell-on clause and everything. So, Ricky, are you happy with the Union asking for $2.4 million? Because when the rumors first came out about Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie, I was saying Mark McKenzie, I can see him going for $1.5 million, $2 million because of Curtin and everything. We know that he means so much to the Union and everything, but with the transfer market not being what it was, with teams not being as active, especially teams buying players from MLS and everything, I was like, yeah, 1.5, $2 million seems fair. Transfer market came out last week and said Mark McKenzie's valued at $2.2 million and everything. And here's this article saying that the Union want $2.4 million. So do you think that price should be higher? Do you think that's about right? What are your thoughts?
I could definitely, I feel like if I'm the Union, if I'm running the team, especially since this is early on in our academy, this is early on, and we've got these players that are starting to get to the point where teams internationally are looking to buy these players. I feel like if this is 3 players from now, say this is Paxton Aronson, and they're coming in with a low deal like $3 million, I'm like, and of course, assuming that McKenzie, Brendan go overseas, do well, we can be like, and I heard this recently on one of the MLS specific podcasts. It's like when you've developed that pipeline, you have those players, you can ask for more later on, especially because MLS hasn't done a great deal of history like deals like this. I feel like right now, $2.5 million for Mark McKenzie, for us as a team, as a franchise trying to build that, and with the homegrown rules as they are, allowing us, I believe, to keep all of that money and then spend whatever whatever amount can go directly to GAM, and we can use that to buy another player. I'm perfectly fine with that. And the other conversation to be had there is we have Jacob Glesnes. We have a backup center back that is essentially, and we've seen it in the last few games, starter caliber. I feel like with Aronson, I feel like I would ask for more because he's worth more to us right now because, and we'll get into this a little bit later, we don't have as much of a bench in the midfield. And Jim has said as much, which is an interesting conversation.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. You're right. I mean, Jim in his press conference before this game against Columbus, he said, yeah, I just don't have the depth and everything. And I, like, you could tell I was telling and everything earlier in the season, especially down in Orlando, he wasn't using all 5 of his subs. To me, that was, Jim saying, look, get me more pieces, spend money, Jay Sugarman. It's not that Ernst doesn't want to spend the money. I'm sure he does want to spend the money and everything. It's 100% on Jay Sugarman and investing money. And Jim's like, okay, well, look, I don't trust these guys on the bench. And we'll get into this conversation a little bit later and everything. But going back to your point about Brenden Aaronson, we all know that attackers cost more in the transfer market than defenders do and everything. And so seeing a couple fans on social media and everything saying, oh, we're just giving away Mark McKenzie for free because we want to say, oh, we sold somebody from our academy. And you're right, Ricky. It's like after we sell a couple players, then that's when we ask for more money and everything. But I think $2.4 million, I think that's fair. And then potentially a 10 to 15, well, not potentially, there will be a sell-on clause. Ernst is not going to sell these guys without it. But I think it's going to be between 10 to 15% and everything. I can't see 20%, even though that would be lovely for the Union. So it's like, okay, yeah, we'll get $2.4 million, like you said. Some of that will be turned into GAM. The rest of it will go to the academy, whatever. And then if Mark does well in Europe and everything, then we'll get even more money for whatever club Mark does get sold to. So that's it for the news and everything. So let's just go straight into the Columbus Crew versus Philadelphia Union game, which we all know ended 1-0. For Columbus Crew. Ricky hit me up and he's like, man, I have so much I want to talk about. Let me come on the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, come on, Ricky. Let's come on. Let's do this thing and everything. And for any other Union fans that are listening to this and everything, I know I had Rich and Ed on a couple weeks ago to talk about, what game was it? Sporting Kansas City, I think, or maybe Portland. I can't remember what it was. So, I mean, if you guys want to come on and review a game with me, you're more than welcome to come on and everything. We'll talk about it and everything. And yeah, I was telling Ricky before this, I was like, I don't really have too many good points to bring up. I feel like we're going to be just getting on this team, even though it wasn't a horrible performance, because this is the one thing I think a lot of Union fans are just not paying attention to. Like, Columbus hasn't given up a goal at all at home this season. They've only given up 2 goals this season. One was a penalty kick, and then I think one was a cheaper goal and everything against Seattle, I think it was. Columbus Crew are a good defensive team, and we saw that against Philadelphia Union. I mean, I said it earlier, I'm not upset as some Union fans on social media, but it is annoying when we had a couple of chances to score. I'm sure we all thought that Mark McKenzie was going to score, but Darlington Nagbe was on the line. He was able to clear the ball. Brenden Aaronson had a couple good chances to score, but again, I've talked about this on the podcast. People on social media have talked about this. People in the MLS world have talked about this. The finishing product isn't there. Brenden Aaronson's dad even came out and said, yeah, we all know Brendan's finishing product's not there. Ernst Tanner said it too. They all said that Paxton Aaronson's the better finisher out of Brenden Aaronson and everything, which is fine and everything. It's just like, man, the last couple games, Brendan's got so many chances and everything, and he's just not able to put them away. I feel like the only time Brendan scores is when he nutmegs a goalkeeper. So, but it's frustrating that they had a couple chances and Columbus, it played right into Columbus' hand, in my opinion. The Union did well to press in the first half and everything, cause mistakes and everything, and Columbus's goal was, okay, we know the Union are going to come out, play this way and everything. As long as we don't concede first and everything, we'll be fine. And that's exactly what Columbus did. They dealt with the pressure that the Union threw at them in the first half. Mark McKenzie, Jack Elliott, they read the ball a couple of times, won it above the halfway line and everything, started another attack and everything. Just the Union weren't able to finish off some chances they had. There were a couple of times, Jamiro Montero sending good corners and, the ball was bouncing around inside the box and everything, causing chaos. And look, I said it last episode, Columbus Crew are going to take out Kacper out of the game and force somebody else to beat them. And that's exactly what Columbus did. They did a good job keeping Kacper out of the 18th for most of the night. And Kacper was dropping. I was looking at the heat map and everything. He was dropping about to the halfway line to collect the ball and everything because he just wasn't getting any space in the 18-yard box and everything. I said last episode, 3 keys to victory if the Union want to win. 1, don't give cheap giveaways away because Columbus will make you pay for it. And I give the Union a pass. They didn't give any big chances away that led to a goal opportunity for Columbus. The Union, they lost the ball 20 times, but it never led to a big chance like we saw against DC United or New York Red Bulls. Point number 2, I said, they got to win the midfield against Columbus. I give that a fail. Like I said, in the first half, the Union did excellent. But as the second half approached and everything, just the Union were tired and everything. And Columbus, they won 12 out of the 17 aerial duels in the midfield. The Union, they completed 20 of the 31 tackles in the midfield, while Columbus completed 17 of the 24. So, that just shows you right there, yeah, Columbus aren't going in there with that many tackles and everything. They're being smart about, okay, when are we going to tackle? When do we think we can win this ball and everything? And, the Union, to their credit, that press, they don't care if they get the ball back or not. They're just hoping that they force an error. The Union in the midfield, they were dribbled by 7 times. So, I got to give the midfield a win for Columbus and everything. And finally, like I just said, the Union, they've got to find other people to score, not just Kacper. I said Columbus with Josh Williams and Jonathan Menza, they've been playing good together. And I had a feeling they were going to take Kacper out of this game. Kacper all night, he had 1 shot, and that was off of a corner kick with his head. Sergio and Brendan Aronson, they both had 1 big chance, each inside the box, and they missed it. So, it's frustrating when you knew that Columbus's game plan was going to come and be, let's take Kacper out. He's been hot for the Union and everything. If they're really going to score against us, it's got to be from someplace else. And it just wasn't there all night.
I definitely feel like you bring up a lot of good points. You're talking about a first half where they played pretty well. You're talking about a team that looked tired. And I think that's going to fit into a conversation that I really want to have. And I think you mentioned a lot of people are on social media are talking about this team negatively after this result. You have to consider the fact that Columbus has let 2 goals in this year. They lost in MLS's back on penalties to, I believe, Minnesota. And that team is so much better than they were last year. They've got Darlington Nagbe. They've got 2 great offensive defensive fullbacks. They've got a great center back pairing. They've got one of the best young CONCACAF, he might not be young, goalies in Eloy Room. And honestly, first half, pretty good. Second half, you let in a pretty fluky goal, honestly. It's not something that you see happen a lot. Mark's 1 step to the other side, and it's not a fluky goal. Mark's 1 step to the other side, and the goal doesn't even get anywhere near the goal. The shot doesn't get anywhere near the goal. I think in your conversation point about the fact that the first half is much better than the second half is what really flows into the conversation that I really wanted to have here. And a lot of tweets after this game, and it might not be a lot, it might just be the sort of random tweets in the post-game malaise that we have, where people were just going back to the whole Curtin out thing and, Jim Curtin's not a great coach. Honestly, we've been through 5 years of Jim Curtin, and every year we've gotten better as a team. And it's not just we're getting better players. It's Jim Curtin's adapted to 2 people running this team, or 3 people, in fact, running this team as the director, between Ernst Tanner and before him, Ernie Stewart, and before him, Sakovic or whatever.
Yep.
And
Sakovic.
He's coming in. Yeah, Nick Sakovic. Yeah, sorry. It's been a while. And he's coming in. He doesn't have a great roster, and he makes it to an Open Cup final. And then he starts to get a better roster, and then he gets better teams. Ernst Tanner's given him the tools for the most part, and we're not, of course, spending the money that the Atlantas are spending, and we're competing. We're playing the number 1 team in MLS. Columbus Crew is the top team in MLS right now. Whether or not in reality they're the best team in MLS, different conversation. They have 20 points. They're the best team in MLS currently. And you lose 1-0 on the road when you flew out to the game the day of and then flew home the day of. So you're talking about a big travel day. You're talking about a lot's going on. And I believe that you're looking at a coach who has a lot of tired players. And for the first time, we didn't see it a lot in MLS back, but we saw more and more subs as we're coming back into the season, as we have more games, because in MLS's back, it was usually 6 days between games. We're having 4 days, 4 days, 4 days, 4 days right now. And he's doing a lot of changes. Specifically on Saturday, we saw Mbaizo start, I believe. We saw Wagner come back. We saw a lot of players switched around, so we would have our best lineup to yesterday. And I feel like this is where I'm going to go a little bit off on the Curtin talk. And I honestly think Jim Curtin's gotten a lot better as a coach. We're looking at, if you look at, say, the NFL and you look at the Patriots, that wasn't, and I'm going to forget the Patriots head coach, Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, it was not his first rodeo. And I'm not in this way comparing Jim Curtin to Bill Belichick because of inherently we're going to win a bunch of MLS's cups. I'm doing the comparison in that he did not do great in Cleveland. He went to New England, and then he found the success he found because he was growing as a coach. Whereas the Philadelphia Union saw a young coach that had some promising traits. He did well in the Open Cups. He managed to get a lot more wins than a lot of other coaches would have gotten with this team. And honestly, in my book, he's probably top 5, top 8 or so coaches in MLS right now. And I might even go as far to say he's probably top 5, top 8 American coaches that are around right now. The only thing that I am still a little bit concerned on is 2 sides of this coin that is Jim Curtin. And the one side is he doesn't seem to do a good job of tinkering with when subs are made, when he's going to change things up. He seems to take a while to figure out, this player, let's look at somebody like Ray Gaddis in the past years. This player is not adding a lot to what you're trying to do a few years ago. And then we're going to take Keegan Rosenberry off the field for 18 games and this is the other part of this, for personal issues that we felt that Keegan Rosenberry is having, while Keegan Rosenberry was and still is, to my knowledge, a better player than Ray Gaddis, offers more to the team. Jim seems to have problems when it comes to recognizing players that play well in games and understanding the situational awareness of, I should make this sub. Jim is definitely the sort of, if you think of old Madden games, when you'd make your create a coach and they'd be like, you're a motivator, you're a former player that did this. Jim is definitely I'm going to come in at halftime and I'm going to yell at you guys. And I'm going to hype you up for the second half. Think of that Jesse March halftime speech for Red Bull Salzburg against Liverpool. That's the type of coach that Jim Curtin is. And I think he's gotten more aware of the tactical side of the game, but he still continuously does this thing where even now that we have 5 subs a game, the first sub is either Warren Creval or Ilsinho. The second sub is either Ilsinho or Warren Creval, depending on what the first sub is. And then even if you look at a game like Saturday, you're playing DC United, it is 4-1. Who did you bring on at halftime? A game you're up, I believe, 3-0 at that point. You bring in Warren Creval because you're like, DC United's going to do something. DC United had nothing that game. DC United has nothing most games right now because every good player for DC United is injured.
Yeah, there's
wild. There's not a lot of great players on that team, but they're all injured right now. And then you have this opportunity. You talk about a midfield that is not deep. And I think this is going to go back to that other side of the coin where you're making the same subs over and over again. And this is exactly why I was like, I need to get on this podcast. It was even before the game last night where I sent him a Twitter DM and was like, we need to talk about Anthony Fontana. Because, and we saw this in Curtin's press conference, where he referred to Fontana, who hasn't played a lot since the return from Florida. He played a little bit in Florida, got like 10-minute cameos. He's played a lot the last 2 years, I believe. He started the first game when he was ever on the team. And his quote about Anthony Fontana was, the weeks of training tell us everything. And if you listen to Kevin Kincaid, you listen to his Union podcast where he referred to Derek Jones and how there might be a Derek Jones situation with Anthony Fontana. The problem with Derek Jones, as far as I can remember, is that he did not love practicing. And by that, I mean, he played really well in the games. We all saw him play really well in the games. He was not a practice guy. And by that, we mean he probably doesn't put in the effort in practice. And Jim's very much you got to be a good guy 7 days a week, or you're not going to be a good guy on that Sunday when we're playing the game. And I understand that from the coach. As a coach, I have to make sure that you're putting in the effort every day to be on the team on Friday, whatever day. I'm thinking of football in that situation. But I understand that, but there's the other side of the coin where you got to put the horses in the race to win the race. And you're not doing that with your lineup. If your first sub every time is Ilsinho and you're saying Ilsinho is the only good midfielder that you have on the bench, I love Ilsinho. The point is, Ilsinho's not Ilsinho from 2019 right now. He could be, but you're playing him every 30 minutes every game, and he's not doing much because, he did all that last season, and then every team is like, oh, we're just going to double team Ilsinho, and if he doesn't get the ball at Kacper or Santos isn't on the field, we're not creating much of an attack outside of Ilsinho. And last night, they're just giving him the ball in the defensive zone, and it's just really hard to concentrate on, winning when you're just making the same subs over and over again. And this is the Anthony Fontana conversation, is Anthony Fontana has played really well for the Union in the times he's played. And I feel like over the last year and a half, you look at every single game he came in last year, he has an ability on the field where I don't think he's a suitable replacement for Brendan Aronson if Brendan Aronson leaves. He's more of a 8 in that realm. He's definitely a Bedoya replacement or a Montero replacement. But the point is, you keep saying, oh, I don't have the bench. You're not going to have the bench if you're up 4-1 against DC United and your subs are the same guys you bring on every game. Yeah, it would be nice for Andrew Wooten to score a goal. But if you remember the Home Alone quote where the sister is telling Kevin he is what the French call les incompetents.
What?
That is Andrew Wooten right now. He is not competent on the field, and that's not. I've watched that man play soccer for like the last 10 years, just because he's in and around the U.S. national team, somebody that they're gonna like talk about bringing up for so many years when he was in Germany, and it's just like our team is not built for Andrew Wooten to score goals. Our team is built for Kacper Przyblko to get on the end of things, for Santos to go on a run to the outside, for Brendan Aronson to go down the middle of the field, get a ball, try to make something happen. When we bring these players on and we continue to do this, we're playing the 4-4-2 the whole game, and then suddenly we're like 4-2-3-1, let's go. That worked because teams didn't really recognize it. But you're going to get found out eventually. This happens in every sport. Coaching gets found out eventually. Like, Leeds United comes into the Premier League this year. Marcelo Bielsa does great things, and then suddenly in a year from now, they get relegated. Or like look at Sheffield United this year. They had a great season because they're doing the attack. The center backs are your overlaps. That's not going to work forever. You look at like Bournemouth had a good few years with Eddie Howe, and then it stopped happening. Right. So the thing is, if you're saying we don't have the subs and you're not going to bring on somebody like Anthony Fontana, whether it's character issues or not, you're not going to bring on Cole Turner, and then you bring on Anthony Fontana for 5 minutes at the end of the game, what sort of message are we trying to give off to everybody? And honestly, I feel like Jim is the correct coach for this team. I think he can get us there. I don't think it's an Andy Reid situation where he can't get us over the hump. I feel like it's you're continuing to learn, you're continuing to do things. I just think he feels like some players should be doing more than they're probably capable of. And I feel like he needs to get to a place where he's comfortable being like, oh, you've been bad for 2 games, I'm going to bench you. And you have that opportunity right now. You have 5 subs. Somebody starts the game, 10 minutes in, you're like, oh, he's having a Ricardo Clark at the 2010 World Cup right now. Let's sub him out. Let's move on from that as an experience. Bring him on for half an hour. You don't need to bring on Ilsinho up 4-1 for half an hour.
No, I agree with you spot on. I mean, you've taken out some of my points and everything. That's okay. I expected it and everything, but let's face it. Let's call it what it is. The Union don't have a plan B when they're down. Now, granted, I guess the flip side of that, which team in the world, doesn't matter MLS or not, which team in the world has a plan B to come from behind and everything when they're losing and everything. Not many teams can come from behind. It's just what it is, And Columbus, to their credit, as soon as they went on 1-0, they didn't park the bus right away and everything. The bus started to get parked around the 75th minute and everything. And it's the teams know, like you said, Elsinho comes in and everything. No reason for him to come in against DC United. But they know, okay, look, Elsinho is going to come in. We saw what he did last year. Let's double team him and everything. And I will keep saying this. The Union need to buy somebody this transfer market. They need to. With the likes of Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie more than likely gone in the winter, this is a really, really good chance of us winning something this year, whether it be the MLS Cup, whether it be winning the regular season. This is a really good opportunity with really, really good players that I think are going to contribute for years to come with the national team that are going to have good, successful careers in Europe and everything. It shouldn't be that hard to invest the money. I know a lot of fans are getting hyped because there's a report out there that says Corey Burke's going to be coming back maybe sometime this week and everything, but then Jim Curtin said in his press conference, I don't know what to tell you about Corey Burke. It's up to the U.S. government and everything, so... In that report, everybody started retweeting and liking and everything. I think that was just that guy jumping the ship and everything. And people are like, oh, we haven't heard from Corey Burke. This is the first good news. And Jim's still like, yeah, I can't tell you and everything what's going to happen with Corey Burke. It's up to the government and everything. And it seems like it's the same old issues that we've been hearing about Corey Burke. It's just the government who knows what's going on. I mean, it's the U.S. government, and we're not here to talk about the U.S. government and everything. It's just like, all these people keep trying to rely on Corey Burke when Corey Burke gets here. He's not here. That's the thing. He is not here. And so you're right. We have no options on the bench. And Jim Curtin knows that. Ernst Tanner knows that. Jay Sugarman needs to come out and spend the money. And it doesn't need to be this huge superstar. We've never been a team that has signed a huge superstar. But you look at last year, Fafa Pico coming off the bench, that brings speed, that changes, like you said, to the 4-2-3-1 and everything. It just brings a different element to the game. Marco Fabian's been, for the most part, he was a pretty terrible player for the Union, but you know what he did bring? He brought up space and everything. He wasn't the fastest guy and everything, and he would take these long shots, which is another point. Columbus was taking long shots all night, testing Andre Blake, and Andre Blake was doing a good job just dealing with that. It doesn't hurt the Union to try long shots. I know El Brujo had a couple. I know Bedoya had one that the keeper spilled, and Sergio Santos ran onto the ball. Jamiro Montero, I think, had one in the game and everything. But it's like, why aren't we taking more long shots to just see if the keeper spills it or not? And that's one thing I can give Marco Fabian credit for. It's like, yeah, a lot of those he wasn't putting on target and everything, but at least he was trying it and everything. He's a quote-unquote creative player and everything. And Elsinho, teams can double-team Elsinho, Marco Fabian, and Fafa Pico. But now the only guy we have that seems to make a difference off the bench is Elsinho, and he's not even making a difference right now. And so it's like, why not invest? Why not invest the money? And, I think there was rumors that Jim said, oh, we may or may not bring in a player this summer, but we'll definitely bring in a player in the winter. Well, no, duh, you guys will bring in a player in the winter. The winter doesn't matter. MLS season for the 2020 season will be done in the winter. This is your best chance right now to win something. And it just blows my mind that we've not seen them bring in a player at all. You have Mario Götze still out there that's not linked anywhere to Europe. And now, granted, there is reports saying that he still wants to stay in Europe, but nobody's signing him in Europe. The European leagues are about to start up, and Mario Götze is still not signed. Now, maybe after this podcast is released, maybe he gets signed, but I think there's a lot of teams in Europe that know something about Mario Götze that we don't know about and everything. And maybe he looks down upon MLS and everything, but it's like, man, if you still want to play soccer and everything, you just suck it up and everything. You can make a nice living. People won't know who you are over here in America. Just you're 27. I get it. You still think you can play in Europe, but obviously teams in Europe don't think you can. And it doesn't have to be a play like Mario Götze. A lot of Ernst Tanner's signings have been nobodies that none of us have known about. And for the most part, he's hit on every single one of his signings. So it's just really, really crazy to me that we haven't seen a signing yet. And I think the transfer market closes in October. So honestly, as the summer goes on and everything, I can't see a signing coming on. And for all these people that are counting on Corey Burke, you just stop. I don't think it's going to happen. It's like, we kept seeing, after MLS is back tournament, he'll come back. Before MLS is back tournament, he'll be in Orlando. Well, he wasn't. And so it's like, I don't know how people can rely on Corey Burke, say, well, when Corey Burke gets here, we're gonna be a better team. The fact of the matter is he's not here. And my other point I wanted to bring up about Anthony Fontana, it's like, do you think when a player like Anthony Fontana wanting to get into games and everything, where everybody knows he should go on for Bedoya, but instead you bring in Warren Cavall, I don't understand when you're down a goal and everything, you bring in a defensive player when you should be bringing on a more offensive player in Anthony Fontana or Jack DeVries, somebody. But Fontana comes on for 4 minutes. And, I got to think, a player that's only getting 4 minutes and who should be getting more than that each game, I feel like he's probably getting inside of his head, how can I impress Jim with the limited amount of time I have? And when Anthony came on, didn't get much time to get on the ball. Even when Andrew Vutin was on the field, he didn't get much time to see the ball and everything. So, I mean, yeah, it's annoying because we know we have a good team. It's just we don't have good options on the bench. And for whatever reason, Jim doesn't want to put Anthony Fontana out there, whether or not it's another Derek Jones situation. I mean, I guess that's yet to be seen. Maybe Nashville will come and say, hey, we'll take Anthony Fontana from you as well. So.
It's always Nashville.
Yeah.
I have a question. What's the worst that can happen if you put on Anthony Fontana for 30 minutes instead of Warren Cavall? What, we lose 2-0, 3-0? We're already losing 1-0. We have a fine goal differential. We just beat DC 4-1. What's the worst that can happen in that situation? Oh, we know we're going to take off Bedoya because Bedoya looks tired every game at this point because he's played every game. He plays 90 minutes every game. And we saw this situation, I believe, at the end of last year where he got hurt, or the year before. He gets hurt with like 2 games to go, makes it back in time for playoffs. But we were pushing last year to win the East. That would have been an automatic spot in Champions League. But the last 2 games, we didn't have Alejandro Bedoya. We didn't have the player that makes this team go. And how would you, as a coach, continue to be like, I'm going to play Alejandro Bedoya 90 minutes this game. I'm not even going to try to do something that'll change the way we run this team, because you can just be like, you know what? I'm going to go to the 4-2-3-1. I'm going to bring in DeVry on one of the sides. I'm going to bring in Elsinho on the other side. We'll have the back two be Martinez and Montero. It would work perfectly fine. And you could have Bedoya get 30 minutes off in a game you're up 3 goals. Or you could put on Fontana, who think about the DC United game last season in the Open Cup, where they got knocked out in 120 minutes because Anthony Fontana came on, scored the only goal the Union scored, looked great. And it's just like, you're not giving this kid chances. And you bring up this whole, how is Anthony Fontana going to feel? Honestly, you look back last year at Austin Trusty. He doesn't play the last 20 games of the season because he's, I want money. He's played a year and a half for the team and he's asking for money because he's worth that money. Now, okay, he's not playing for Colorado. Maybe he isn't worth the money at this point. But you look back at Keegan Rosenberry, he was playing well. You pulled him off, and then you didn't put him back in because you won 15 straight games, which kind of makes sense. But also Ray Gaddis isn't adding anything at that point. I feel like at this point, Ray Gaddis is a fine right back. We're getting more out of him because everybody else on the team is better. Which brings me to the other point that you bringing up the Burke thing was one thing I definitely wanted to talk about. But the other point is Mbaizo at left back, and then Real comes on and actually does something because he's left-footed. I would have been fine playing Mbaizo at right back because, honestly, he gives more than Ray does. He might not be the stalwart defensive right back that you want, but you're going on the road. You're more likely to lose than you are to win on the road. It's stats, right? Might as well go offensive if you're not going to have Kai Wagner. You might as well go Real and Mbaizo. Tell Real, remember when you first made that start last year because Kai got the red card? Just sit back. If you have your chances, go forward. And Mbaizo is going to be the attacking guy. Real has done that in games on the road before. He did that against LAFC. We had a great game against LAFC. And then you're like, oh, Columbus. They pass the ball great. They don't do a lot, I feel, offensively. They win games 1-0, 2-0. They're not doing a lot attacking, and we saw that in that game last night. I think you have this opportunity. I don't think Warren Cavall coming on for 30 minutes when you're down 1-0 is the best choice. I don't think Ilsinho coming on for 30 minutes every single game, especially against a team like Columbus that plays defense really well, is your best option. And if you don't think you have options on the bench, okay, maybe Corey Burke's coming back. I understand the whole we don't have to have this conversation until the conversation's actually happening with Corey Burke, but I did want to touch on this because Corey Burke is definitely the sort of player that would work in this system as both a starting option in either position, honestly, either for Przyblko or for Santos. He definitely has the capability of getting down the lines, running in the same way that Santos does, but he also is a big man. He can play the more hold-up position. I also feel like he is a good option as a winger, and that's how he got into the team 2 years ago. He came on a lot on the wing. He got a great cross. I remember his first game with the Union after being with Bethlehem Steel for a while, where he came on, got an assist. It was either a tying goal or a winning goal. Random game early 2018 or 19, probably 2018, because I think last year he was started off as one of the main starters and then had this whole issue, whatever this issue continues to be. And I feel like he might not be in the form that we're looking for. Austria is a relatively okay league, but it's not. I feel like it's probably below MLS in the grand scheme of things. You have your Red Bull Salzburg, and then you have 17 teams that are also in the league, right? It's a league where you like the Jamaica thing. You send him to Jamaica, keep him in form. He comes back. He doesn't come back. Whatever. He would be a good option on this team. He would give you a lot more bench play than you're getting right now. You have 3 or 4 guys on the bench that aren't seeing the field no matter what. Cole Turner's not coming on. You have players that I'm not subbing on Cole Turner myself if I'm in that position. I understand that he's more of a defensive midfielder that can pass the ball than anything. In any case, though, Warren Creavalle as a bench option in that position doesn't make sense. If you start Warren Creavalle as an 8 and have him play 60 minutes defensively, and then you bring on, say, Alejandro Bedoya for 30 minutes, give him a break. You'll play 30 minutes and then you can run your heart out because that's what Alejandro Bedoya does. That's all what he's always done. Or say to Jamiro, you're going to get most of this game off and then we're going to bring you on. Or even, you know what? Crazy idea. Why don't we let Jamiro start at the 10? Aronson gets the day off until 70 minutes in. And we're like, Brendan, you only have to come on 20 minutes, do the things that you do in a 90-minute game, but just do them as quickly as you can. We're going to bring you on. We're going to bring on Anthony Fontana at the 8 for Bedoya. We're down 1-0. Do something. And I feel like as a young player, you want that opportunity because if you're coming on down 1-0 or you're coming on up, you're up 4-1 and you have that option as a young player, you're always going to be trying to do stuff. And I feel like we need to do better. And I say Jim Curtin needs to do better at getting these people on the field. And he's been trying to do that. He's been changing the lineup. He's been rotating the center back. He's been rotating the fullbacks. But if you don't think that midfield is good enough on the bench, the only way to make that midfield good enough on the bench is to play the players, play the kids, play them, because honestly, unless you do get another person in, which at this point I would be incredibly surprised because, and I guess the other thing is most of the time when they bring in Bedoya, when they bring in Wooten, when they bring in Tranquillo Barnetta, we're surprised by it at the end of the window. I would be shocked, and I'm saying that again, but it's also going to be some random person who might not be great, but it's Ernst Tanner, who Martinez, and I said this on Twitter, Martinez is probably the best MLS signing this offseason because we thought he was a defensive midfielder and he was going to be the guy that wasn't going to see the field, and Orevic was going to be the new defensive midfielder. And Martinez has probably become the Diego Chara of the Philadelphia Union, and you're looking at this kid who's older than me or young, same age as me. I don't know why I called him a kid. Anyways, you're looking at this guy who we thought was just going to be your grinded out. He's just going to bully some random center forward on another team, attacking midfielder. Martinez passing ability, and there's been quite a lot of him just chipping the ball to the other side of the field, where I'm just I didn't know this kid could pass. And I remember in the offseason being oh, Orevic looks like he's going to be a great player. And that whole conversation is a whole nother podcast that we should probably do. But Martinez, honestly, is probably one of the best Union offseason signings ever, besides, of course, Kai Wagner. And I think Ernst Tanner doing a great job. Jim Curtin, room for improvement right now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I definitely gave a ton of thoughts and everything, Ricky, and everything, and I definitely appreciate it and everything. And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do Blunder of the Week and everything, because I do want you to plug your podcast and everything for all you people that are into video games and everything. So my Blunder of the Week this week, it's gonna go to Toronto FC because of their botched penalty kick against Montreal Impact. I mean, just take the blunder, Toronto. So, I mean, if you guys didn't watch this, Pasuelo, he, rather than shooting the penalty, he directly touched the ball forward for one rushing Piatti. And, yeah, the ref called it back. I mean, to, I guess, Piatti's credit, he scored, but he definitely was encroaching in the penalty arch. And so the referee says, yeah, this is an indirect free kick and everything. And I'm like, why would you do this? Like, Pozzolo's pretty good at penalties, and just take your goal. But instead they get too cute and everything. And I don't know, maybe they were watching the Barcelona days when I believe Messi did this and Suarez scored a goal and Neymar was on the team MSAN and everything. But I'm like, dude, you're not Messi, you're not Suarez and everything. It's like, just take the penalty and everything. And unfortunately for the Union, we could have picked up points against Toronto, but, we lost 1-0, which I said isn't the worst result in the world and everything. But Ricky, now's the time. Go ahead and I don't know how you're feeling. You've talked a lot and everything, so maybe you're out of breath, maybe not. But go ahead and tell everybody about X-Button Gaming.
Okay, so I've actually, some of the people you've mentioned, you've had on the show even have been on. I had Buzzkill Ed on. I believe my first episode we talked about The Last of Us Part 2. I had Adam Booth on. I will definitely have both of those guys back on. Basically what I'm doing is I'm taking some people I've known for a few years, or like random people I see on Twitter a lot, and I'm basically having video game conversations about you as a gamer. So we'll talk about like what your favorite games are, like how you got into games. And it's like this conversational podcast where we go from like, oh, hey, what's your favorite game? And somebody's like, I played a lot of like Knights of the Old Republic as a kid. And then they just start talking about this. And then 5 minutes later, we're talking about the Philadelphia Union, or we're talking about, me and Adam had a cool conversation about, video games as a storytelling device, and how that's become more and more of a thing as they've become more a part of the culture. And it's called X-Button Gaming because every single system has some sort of X button. If you think about it, you've got an X button on your laptop, you've got an X button on your PlayStation, on your Xbox, your Nintendo, Wii, whatever Nintendo system you're using these days, a Switch, what most people would be using. But I really like to have conversations with people, and I've had some people I've known personally for a long time. I've had some people that I've only recently met because of this podcast, in fact, with Ed, and me and Adam have been friends for about a year and a half. And honestly, I just like to talk to people about games. Sometimes we talk about current events, and I'll be doing that a lot because, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X are coming out this year. And you can find it, of course, Spotify, iTunes, all the places that you do your podcast listening, like probably where you get this podcast even. And honestly, in the next few weeks, I'm going to have a few international friends of mine come on, and it's going to be a really exciting run through. I got an Australian coming on. I got an English guy coming on, and I have one of my friends from South America coming on. And those are going to be really cool things to look forward to. And then always you can find those links on iTunes, on your Spotify's. But of course, you can check me out on Twitter at Ricky Rondo and at Instagram at Ricky_Rondo. I know you like to always bring up the fact that most of my pictures are me at soccer games and me at theme parks. Soccer games has only happened once this year. Of course, LAFC, I was there, had a lot of fun. And theme parks happened a little bit more, but mostly me going to Hershey and being like, I really wish my friends were here, but all my friends are like, I don't really want to go out. And I'm like, it's clean though. Anyways, it's always a joy to come on the show, man. And I appreciate your chance to talk about my new podcast. And Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you coming on and everything, and I'm all about, just promoting other people that I've had on the podcast and everything. It takes a lot of work to start a podcast and everything, and, I'm sure you're probably the same way. You're not doing it to get big, to get famous, to get money and everything. You're doing it because it's a hobby, and that's exactly why I do this. I don't care about numbers and everything. I do it because, nobody in the Philadelphia market talks about soccer and everything. I'm passionate about soccer, and so I know there's a lot of people in the area that want to hear about the Philadelphia Union, and I'm sure that's why all the other Philadelphia Union podcasts have started a podcast too. So it's like, there's a want for that content and everything, and here we are providing for it. And a lot of you guys that are listening have, like I said, heard Ricky on this podcast so many times with the trivia show or his first episode. Everybody needs a glue guy or something. I forget. Ricky knows exactly what it was.
It's definitely something like that. That was definitely what we talked about.
Yeah, and it's just it's always great to get to talk to you and listen to your rants and everything. I know you have a lot to say about the United States men's national team, and it was great to hear your thoughts on Jim Curtin and everything. And if you guys aren't following the podcast, so follow on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick, Todd Lewis. And check out the next episode. I'll be previewing the New York Red Bulls game with Matt Sia of, Post and Pins, I think's the name of his podcast and everything. So it should be a great time and everything, talking to a Pink Cow fan and everything. He's also a Manchester United fan, so I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Manchester United. But Ricky, it's always a blast, and I'm sure we'll catch up real soon again on the podcast.
Thanks, man. Definitely.
All right. And with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.